challenge is that many times we don't give ourselves the permission to find value in our success because we're always saying, well, I could have done better here. They celebrate small, ordinary wins so they can get to great, amazing wins. You're the answer to the circumstance you're walking into. You're not the question to be figured out. When you use somebody else and you try and imitate them, the best you can ever do is second place.
What's the secret weapon behind every top CEO and entrepreneur? A game-changing executive assistant. Hermessi gives you access to elite EAs who supercharge your productivity. From payroll and admin to social media and customer support, they handle it all so you can focus on growth and big picture decisions. These aren't your average assistants. They're expertly trained, thoroughly screened, and equipped with the latest AI tools to work smarter and faster. Ready to delegate and dominate? Get 15% off your first 2 months with code INSPIRE15. Don't wait. Visit Hermessi, that's HERMESSI.webflow.io and take back your time today. Fear and doubt cost businesses billions in lost opportunities each year. Behind the success stories and achievements, 70% of entrepreneurs still secretly battle imposter syndrome. But what if these inner battles aren't obstacles at all, but doorways to extraordinary breakthrough? Our guest today transformed his own struggles into a proven path that's empowering leaders worldwide. Through his Life Mastery program, he's guided hundreds of entrepreneurs to discovering a game-changing truth. When you understand your true identity, excellence becomes effortless. I'm Lindavo, and we're diving deep with Mark Collins, founder of Freedom for Life and author of Life Mastery, to discover how to turn your deepest fears into our greatest advantages. Get ready to challenge everything you thought you knew about achieving lasting success. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Mark Collins.
Thank you so much, Linda. I'm excited to be here.
You help people live life by design, not by default. What was that pivotal moment that showed you the difference between these two different paths?
By the way, great question. I should have probably started with that. But to me, it was really living it out myself. Anything I do in tools and resources, my book and course that I provide people aren't just great ideas that I had for somebody else's growth, their development, their excellence, but really me desiring it for myself. Within business or academics or athletics, I've had a lot of things that I've used to succeed at. Unfortunately, in a lot of cases, we use them as a substitute for an identity, a substitute for value and worth. And in that place, you find that they can leave you lacking and you need more. And so for me, it was that journey of going from a young man of insecurity, dealing with fear, failure, and imposter syndrome. Glad you mentioned that one. It's a huge one for me as well as people I work with. And then still trying to figure out that man on the inside, the person I believed I could be, how do I get him on the outside? And so for me, it was starting to unpack some tools and strategies to be able to do that, going to help for transformation, not just change and creating habits that you have to maintain. And within that was this structure and understanding that I saw within myself and other people that a lot of times we live with whatever tools we have. And so that success for me was just, it's the standard thing that everybody does, right? Once I become successful, once I have a business or an income level or the possessions or whatever the thing is we want, now I'm going to be somebody of worth. Now fear doesn't happen. Imposter syndrome won't be there. I won't have the stress and the worry that I used to. And come to find out that's actually the opposite, or fame or whatever the things that we're using. And so we use the system we know. We use the things that we think are going to work and what everybody else says. So what I find is that we use things like success, your position, your power, and those things, or at least I did in the people that I work with, as a substitute, because we believe that those are the things that we're supposed to do. And or, Linda, there's always the downside of alcohol or other things that you're using to try and substitute for the life you don't like. And so what I find is that we're using a default, not because it's anything we're doing wrong or something to be blamed for, but because it's the standard that everybody uses. A life by design, by the opposite, is understanding that you're living from identity. So it's not me having my world and my outcomes and my income telling me who I am, but it's really having those things as responses to who I am. So my identity, who I believe I am, who I'm created to be, creates my outcomes. My outcomes don't create my identity.
Wow, that's powerful as well. Speaking of identity and purpose, what's the hidden cost of chasing success without first knowing who you are? Because I've just come to self-realization lately as well. Chasing success, chasing the business, chasing the revenue. But also I do feel like success, there's other parts of success that I'm also chasing, family, health, mindset, fitness. Like there's multiple different approaches of success, but without knowing who you are. And that's what I'm just starting to realize lately, hearing all these podcasts about know yourself and heal yourself as well. But what's that hidden cost of chasing success without knowing who you are first?
and I'm sure you have found this because you're successful, what I find is people who aren't successful think success is the key, the answer. People who are successful find that. It reminds me of a client named Brett who was hugely successful, is hugely successful. And before walking in what we call life mastery journey, my course is called Life Mastery, but before walking in that, he had success, but success was more of a relief than a joy. The reason it was is because, again, you're making up for what you believe you're lacking. For me, it was imposter syndrome. For him, it was fear of failure. For somebody I had a conversation with this morning, it was a poverty mindset because of having a lack of funds as a child. So you grow up with this understanding that I have to make sure I'm never going to be poor again. And so success is your antidote to that. The problem is when you become successful, it's never successful enough. As I say with the people I work with, overcoming imposter syndrome, I thought when I became successful in business, it'd all go away. The challenge was when I got to the top of the mountain, it just came along for the ride. And so for a lot of us, it's that case of success, because we're using it as a substitute for identity, it's never going to be enough because I'm always having to reprove myself to me. And I think to everybody else around me, right? So you always have to have that next one, right? The next success, the next car, the next title, the next role, whatever the thing is that you're using. So that's the downside, again, because we're going by a default mindset of I need to create outcomes in order to create an identity. And so the work we do is really unpacking that, helping people understand you have value and worth, you have a sense of purpose before you have the outcomes. The outcomes are coming from your identity, but they're a horrible substitute for your identity. So if you're using an income or a title or a role to try and show that you're somebody of worth, and I was in that position, I was doing that, then all of a sudden it's never going to be enough. It always has to be that next one. The next one is the one where I'll feel confident. The next one is the one where I'll feel assured of who I am.
But like growth is good in a way, right? So what are your thoughts on that? Because, once you hit your goals and your targets, you always got to have the next level of growth. And I guess it does fulfill you temporarily, but isn't that a good thing as well? Because we can keep on achieving and growing as human beings and expanding and evolving though. What are your thoughts on that? Because that's good. But if there's any underlying issues, then you're never going to get fulfilled. And talk to me about that purpose thing as well, because I love hitting my goals and then working towards bigger goals next year, and 5 years' time. I think it gives you something to strive for. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that thought. And I think the word you said, fulfillment, is the one that I tend to focus on with the people that I work with and in my life as well, because there's a difference between success and fulfillment. In the work that I do, the difference between the two is success is really just the outcome of effort. You work hard enough, long enough, more than everybody else. You put enough energy into it long enough, right? I tell people the only people who believe there's overnight success are the people who've never tried to succeed. The truth of the matter is every journey towards success is a lengthy journey, but at the end of the day, the challenge between success and fulfillment is success is me just accomplishing something. It's not changing who I am. And in that place, sometimes it's a substitute, especially for the people that I work with. Fulfillment is me really living from who I am. It's that passion, like I'm sure you're doing with your podcast and some other endeavors that you have, Linda, where it's this thing that I'm always wanting to do, right? The thing that you have to be pulled away from for other activities and responsibilities, the activity or the thing that you do that you lose track of time, or you're not doing it, you're mulling over ideas on how you can do it better or how you can be more creative, or the things that you're doing within it. It's those things, the passions of purpose of who you're created to be. And with those, for sure, the outcome of really going for it is exactly what you should be doing. The challenge with most of the people I know is you're going for it and you're trying to achieve higher and higher levels of success, not to maximize who you are. As I say with the people I work with, live that life mastery life. It's really because the last one wasn't good enough. And so the difference between the two is when I'm using it as an identity statement, it's never going to be enough. When I'm creating success in my life and having fulfillment in my life because of my identity and who I am, then it's always going to be enough. And I'm always going to know what those things are. For us, the goal at the end of the day is, I'll just give you the definition. Life mastery and the work we strive for is for you to live a life mastery life, which is you living from who you're created to be at the highest level you're created for in every area of life. And so those goals and those dreams and those 5-year plans and things you're talking about, what we do is help people to start to unpack and unleash who they're created to be identity. And in that place, say, okay, well, for us, there's 5 levels of life mastery. 2 of them I could talk about are the physical and the financial. So in the financial area, the question that we have that we invite people into the journey of figuring out is, okay, so financially, what's the life that you're created for? That maximize that effortless excellence, the thing that is you, right? What's that life? What does that look like? Is it you as a millionaire? Is it you as somebody who's financially stable? Is it you as a philanthropist or an entrepreneur? Because here's the thing, if I'm always shooting for a goal that has nothing to do with my identity, then it's always going to leave me lacking. But when I'm unleashing who I am in the areas that I'm called to, that I'm created for, that I'm developed for, then it's that insatiable passion, that light that's unmistakable. It's the same phrase that people use in business. They talk about you get to the top of the mountain and you find out you climbed the wrong mountain. There's so many people that are climbing the wrong mountain. It may not be a vocation. Oh, I should have been a doctor instead of a lawyer. I should have been an entrepreneur instead of a worker. But it's mostly I should have been who I was created to be, not what I felt everybody else told me I was or who I felt I needed to be to make up for the lack in my life.
But how do we what it is that we were created to be?
That's a great question.
How do we know?
That's a great question. We have 3 tools that we use for identity, and really it comes down to this. It comes down to identity. And for us, the first tool that we use is an I am statement. And all the things that you and I just talked about, Linda, are what we take and put aside in order to start that I am statement. Apart from your vocation, your income, your title, your role, your possessions, your position, all of the things that you have, when we strip all of that away, all the things that the world and social media and all of advertising tells you, when you have those things, you're somebody of importance. Okay, so if that's not true, let's set all those things aside and what's left is who you are. So I give you the first 2 words of your statement. It's I am. The rest of it's up to you. And it's in your journey. I'm a person of faith. So for me, it starts with an understanding, okay, well, who was I created to be? But even if you're not a person of faith, here's the truth. I believe that, like me when I was younger, the thing that started me on the journey that we talked about, really believing that there was a greater life than what I was living. And as I said before, the man on the inside, I wanted to see on the outside of confidence and assurance and passion and presence, not somebody who was arrogant, not somebody who just had a certain level of income, but really somebody who is fearless and really living authentically their life. So that person who is that person, the person of character, the person of value, right? That person apart from your outcomes. Second tool we do really quickly is we create a celebration list. The celebration list is this. It's the answer to this question I give them. What do you love about you? It's not your accomplishments. It's not your trophies. It's not your titles. What do you love about you? What I know, especially with high achievers and entrepreneurs, but really with everybody, is that if I was to give you a mirror and tell you to describe what you see, you'd probably start with something you're lacking. And even if you didn't on the outside, on the inside, you'd be, well, I'm not as good. I'm not as great. You're right. The things we use in our own life, and even specifically in business, a lot of times, even in success, we see the things we could have done better. And it's not bad to try and, maximize your efforts and do the things that you do to really refine who you are and your offering and whatever the thing is you're doing in business. The challenge is that many times we don't give ourselves the permission to find value in our success because we're always saying, well, I could have done better here. I could have created more income there. I could have had a different offer there, or whatever the thing is that you're doing. The celebration list peels all that back and basically answers this question: do I have value before I do anything? Because the truth is, if you don't have value and feel you do before you do, you'll never feel that you do after you do. And so for us, it's this understanding of you're worth celebrating. You're a person of worth and value before you've done anything in your life. It doesn't mean you don't accomplish great things. I believe everybody has an impact. As I tell them, you have an impact in the world that has your name on it. And what we're trying to do is unleash you into fullness of the capacity for it. So the second one's that celebration list, and the third one's the accomplishment list. I ask the people I work with to write down 20. I've written down 138. And Linda, like I do, once you get past the teens and the 20s, when you get into the 30s, the 40s, 50, 70, 100, now all of a sudden I'm writing things down like, I show up on time every day. I pay my bills on time. I make sure the maintenance on my car is done, right? It's all of these small things in life. And here's the interesting thing that high achievers, I'm sure people you've worked with on a consistent basis do. They celebrate small, ordinary wins so they can get to great, amazing wins. There's nobody who's won an Olympic gold medal. There's nobody who's won the World Cup or any kind of championship or any kind of trophy who hasn't celebrated the things they've done along the way. A lot of times we think that when I get to that position, now I've done it. Now I'm somebody of worth. Here's the truth of the matter. Your identity won't change just because you get there. And most likely you won't even get there unless you start to celebrate the ordinary things. When we don't celebrate the ordinary things, we never see the extraordinary things in our life. And if we do reach a modicum or a level of success, it's more stress than joy because we're working so much harder than we need to. And so that accomplishment list is really helping people understand you're a person who succeeds on a daily basis. Fear of failure, it can't really trip up your mind. It can't really infect your thoughts when you see that I'm a person who's consistently winning. And especially for people and business entrepreneurs, people that are taking those big chances in life, going for those big dreams, there's many things you learn from the failures that are learning experiences in your life. So when you have a track record of saying, I'm a person of success, it's just more motivation to align your thoughts with the truth of who you are, not what your outcomes have told you. And in that place, now all of a sudden answers come more quickly and boldness happens more often. And I don't want to say a fearlessness, but an assurance that I'm going to be able to find solutions for the challenges that are coming up starts to happen more quickly in your life. So your successes happen faster and your levels go higher because you're not trying to use success to prove worth. You're showing you're successful because that's your track record. That's who you are lived out. So the three of them, the I am statement, the celebration list, and the accomplishment list, with those, it's a pretty well-rounded picture that we use to help people start with that foundational step of identity.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. And you mentioned fear as well. And oftentimes a lot of people do have fear, especially if they're looking to be starting their own business or in entrepreneurship, that fear of failure. I've had that myself many times as well, starting a business and not going through with it because I failed and I just thought, no, I don't want to fail again. So I didn't go through it 100% too. But how does facing our deepest fears become our competitive edge?
See, I love what you said there because you gave an example of what I see in my own life and other people as well. One of the foundational things that made us start with identity as really kind of the core and foundation of what we do is because what I tell people is this: you're either living from who you're created to be or what your life has told you. And in business, we're either living from who we're created to be, meaning the phrase I give people often, they probably get sick of me saying it, is you're the answer to the circumstance you're walking into. You're not the question to be figured out.
Wait, repeat that again.
You're the answer to the circumstance you're walking into. You're not the question to be figured out. Many times, like you'd said, we have past failures and challenges and it didn't work out and all of those things we tell ourselves. Well, what we use is our past to inform our present and create our future. I'll say it again. We use our past to inform our present and create our future. What does that mean? Well, I failed in the past, so that's probably going to be the outcome with this thing I'm trying. And it's definitely going to happen in the future that this isn't going to work out. And so we do one of two things. We hesitate, we dream small, or we don't try at all. And even people who are hugely successful, they reach the level of success they think they can manage, not necessarily the one they're created for. And so in that place, your past is either telling you who you are or you're telling your past who you are. Again, identity, who are you created to be? And so how do you overcome that? How do you overcome those fears? Well, the first is to understand that you are a product of your creation, not of your experience. And if that's the case, then has failure happened? Has challenges happened? Has struggle happened? Have issues happened? Yeah, for sure. I never tell people that your past is something to ignore, forget, or act like it didn't matter. What I do is instruct them to help them understand what we desire for you to do and give tools and strategies to do is to ensure that your past doesn't get to tell you who you are anymore. They're experiences to walk through and learn from. They're not an identity statement to live out. And then that place, boldness and experiences and amazing journeys are the outcome of that. And then you live to, again, life mastery, living to the highest level that you're created for, not the level that you can manage or control.
It's pretty powerful as well because you just got to reframe your perspective as well and learn from this. And I love the fact that you said you're the creator. So, that's what I'm learning a lot too about rewiring your brain and training your subconscious mind and just taking a step back and thinking about what you've experienced in the past and how that affects your behavior as well. Be able to change for the better. A lot of work involved as well. But there's some other things, spiritual growth and things that I'm learning as well. Spiritual is a deep part of things is something that I've just been fascinated about. I love business, but I love spirituality. And that's why I'm learning about that on my podcast. I created the podcast to learn as much as I can for me and just share it with the world as well. But what are your thoughts on that? And what's the relationship between spiritual growth and business innovation?
That's a great question. I think for me, everything starts, at least in my perspective, with spiritual growth. So I am a person of faith. So I do have a spiritual journey that I'm walking on. I do have a faith that I live out. And for me, the understanding of identity always starts with that as the beginning, is again, starting from who you're created to be. And again, you don't have to be a person on a spiritual journey or a faith walk, right? Strategies and tools work even if you don't know the author of them. But when you do know the author, now all of a sudden you're able to more easily and quickly connect to who you are. That celebrationalist, you're more easily able to be in your faith journey, your spiritual walk, because you see, well, then I'm just not a subject of circumstance, of happenstance, or of accident. There's actually a pre-planning of my creation. And if that's the case, then maybe there's also a pre-planning of my destiny, my role, my impact, the goals and the plans that I have and the passions that I have lived out. And so in business excellence, it really, it's so multifaceted, Linda. So it starts with identity, what starts with creation. Okay, if I live from my created value, then the next thing I want to figure out is, okay, what am I created for? And, you can kind of figure some of that out. The more I know who I am, the more I know what my role is in the things that I'm doing. And the more I understand how my passions look like lived out, like this conversation we're having, my course, Life Mastery, the book that I authored, Life Mastery, Living Life by Design, Not by Default. There weren't things I was doing to try and figure out who I was. There were things that I was impacting through because of who I was. And so in that place, I understood that, in the role in business and personal development and coaching, well, this is me living out my passion. My passion is to see others elevated into their life mastery life, the life that they're created for, to have the tools and strategies for transformation, not just habits for change. The problem with habits for change is the habit I use to get there, I have to use to stay there. And that doesn't sound like transformation or growth. It actually sounds like exhaustion to me. Yeah. But transformation is something different. When I'm using habits to inform who I am, not to create who I am, now all of a sudden that man, that woman that you're created to be can be unleashed. Well, in that place, again, you talked about it in science, the neuroplastic structures and changing your thought process and using those tools to kind of change the structures of your brain and to be able to use those to really elevate what you believe and your thoughts and your ideas and those strategies and the things that you would use for a creative endeavor, for an academic endeavor, or for a business. In that place, when I start to allow the structures of my brain, my thought process, and all those things that I use to align with who I am, now all of a sudden that person gets lived out. Well, when that person gets lived out, when I show up as me, so do the ideas, so does the creativity, so does all of the things that make me me, my character, my value, my worth, my strength, my passion, my integrity, and all of those things. And now all of a sudden, how could it not elevate your business? When I'm not using my business as a substitute for identity, when you're doing that part, I have to manage things. We can have goals, we can have a 5-year plan, but it could only be so much. And what I know I can control are at least a couple of steps ahead of where I'm at. But don't dream too far ahead, because then it may not work out. And then what would that say about me? But when you're living from who you are, again, the answer to the circumstance you're walking into, not the question to be figured out, there's fearlessness that comes in there. Because here's the truth of the matter. Me showing up as me is all I need to, and then those answers will come along. And in that place, now all of a sudden you find spontaneous ideas, you find creative answers, you find amazing strategies that maybe didn't come along or wouldn't have come along if I was just trying to control my environment, trying to make sure that I don't fail again, trying to make sure that we only dream so high or look so far.
What tools do you recommend that we can start to unlock these things and these strategies that you're talking about and help us rewire and not just living on by habits? Like, what's the first tool or strategy or step that we could do to start discovering this and unlock that?
Absolutely. And so we unpack the first tool we use, which is identity. I am statement, celebration list, accomplishment list. And we create that first because what we want to do is, again, life by design, not by default, life mastery, not life management. We want to use affirmations and the ability to repetitively build up in my mindset, my thought process, my ideas, who I am, not what I'm trying to accomplish. And so what that means is in many developments in which, again, the reason I created a transformational program like Life Mastery is all I saw were programs that created change, and they have value and they have a certain level of worth. The challenge is they don't have transformation, they create habits. One of those is that they tell you, okay, well, use affirmations and use mantras and they'll change the neural structures of your brain. They'll change the way you think about you and about your world. And there's ways that can happen. The challenge is, for me, most of those didn't work. because generic mantras, generic affirmations, I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy. Well,
It's like
maybe
you're
you
lying
like,
to yourself. You're actually saying, "Oh, really? Am I?" Yeah.
yes. And so we think something's wrong, right? Life by default. Well, why isn't it working for me? I say those things, but then this other thought comes in. No, I'm not. I see where I'm living. I see the car I'm driving. I see the income level I have. And then
That's just
the
like
interesting thing is you're
embodiment
right,
too.
because you're
Yeah.
not generically rich. You're not generically intelligent, wealthy, whatever. And so that's exactly why we create the identity statements first. I am statement, celebration list, accomplishment list, because what we use is to empower them through our 3-step transformational strategy, mastering your thoughts, words, and actions. The difference between most programs and what we do is it's not starting with a generic affirmation. It's not looking at somebody else, idealizing the perfect you, and then trying to use phrases that help you measure up. But it's doing something so much more powerful, which is starting to unpack who you are. I am statement, celebration list, accomplishment list, seeing you for the truth of who you are, not what the lies your past had told you. Like you talk about with failure, like I talk about with fear and imposter syndrome. They weren't just things that came up in my head. They weren't mental defects in my head. They were what my past had told me, the experiences I had walked through, the things I had tried that I didn't measure up to, the family members, in my case, my father, who I never felt I could measure up to, right? All of those experiences led to you're not really good enough. That's for other people. Success is for them, not for you. So all of those things, they don't come from nowhere. It doesn't come from the ether. It comes from past experiences and the identity statements you take from it. How do you overcome them?
Ready to revolutionize your content game? Meet Modern IQ, the AI tool that creates SEO optimized, plagiarism free blog posts with just one click. No more writer's block or endless hours of content creation. Generate high quality articles that boost visibility, save time, and slash marketing costs. Whether you're a startup or an established business, this tool is your content team, marketing expert, and SEO guru in one. Click on the link in the description to claim your free article and join forward-thinking entrepreneurs who are working smarter, not harder. The future of effortless marketing is here. Are you ready to dive in?
Mastering your thoughts, your words, and your actions. Why don't generic affirmations work? Because you're not that person. I know I'm not Elon Musk. I know I'm not, name them, the man or woman that I want to be like them, so I'll do what they do until I become like they are. It never works out. First off, because when you use somebody else and you try and imitate them, the best you can ever do is second place. And secondly, you don't know the journey that they were on to get to that level of success you see. You just see the outcomes of their years of work. So, mastering your thoughts, words, and actions instead of generic affirmations. What if I used my identity statement, my I am statement, my celebration list, my accomplishment list, and I use that as the affirmation that I feed myself? Now, all of a sudden, you have actually affirmations and mantras. You have daily conversations with yourself that align with who you are, but the maximized version, right? Living life mastery, the person you're created to be at the highest level you're created for. We're not giving affirmations or creating identity statements from who I am now, but that vision of the person I believe I'm created to be. And in that place, you're changing your thoughts because now they're aligning with that. So I go into that business transaction and, I've been walking this journey and I'm using my affirmation. I'm using my affirmation about my identity and who I am. I'm using it every day so that I remind myself before work starts. You never train for a battle when you're in it. You train before you get there. Again, life by design, not by default. We believe life by default is I take my generic affirmations and I bludgeon my thoughts into alignment until they are quiet, all those negative thoughts that I'm thinking. And then it happens again and you have to do it again. And then it happens again and you have to do it again. Life by design is understanding, no, I'm the answer to the circumstance I'm walking into. I have a vision and a version, accurate version, a truthful version of who I'm created to be. As I continue to remind myself of who that person is, now all of a sudden you're going to find a miracle happens. The miracle is you start to show up as that person. In the times of stress that you would have in the past or challenging circumstances or something that's not going right? In the past, I would have fear, I would have anger, I would have, the sense I need to control this. I'd be desperate to change things because I need them to work out the way I want them to work out. Now, all of a sudden, you notice you're walking in as a person of assurance, of confidence. It doesn't mean challenges don't happen. It just means they don't affect your identity. I'm not trying to constantly fix things so that I don't look like I'm a failure. I'm finding solutions because I know that I'm the answer. It's in your business, it's in your job, it's in your relationship, it's in your academic abilities. It doesn't mean life is perfect, but what it does mean is my experiences will no longer tell me who I am. I remind myself of who I am so that man, and in your case, that woman, shows up as that person. And now all of a sudden, you have this habit of showing up as the person you're created to be. The person I am today, Linda, believe it or not, I don't have to remind myself to show up as me because
Well,
I've trained my thoughts and I've changed the wiring of my brain and I've created an understanding of who I am. And that man shows up and you get to celebrate it and you get to be excited about it and you get to see the results of it. That life mastery, life spiritually. Well, we have 5 areas: spiritually, relationally, vocationally, whether it's a job or business, physically, and financially. You showing up at the maximum level you're created for in each of those areas is that life of fulfillment, is that life of, man, this is exactly who I am being lived out. That's the goal we have. That's the destination we're going towards.
wow. And you mentioning like mastering your thoughts. So that's something that a lot of people might have a lot of negative thoughts rewired subconsciously from their upbringing or their past as well. So how do we do that, especially when these thoughts just pop up and like subconsciously they pop up? If you have a thought, a limiting belief, for example, or shame, fear, imposter syndrome, there's anxiety, there's so many thoughts that pop up subconsciously. So how do you master that thought?
That's
It's just
a great
training it
question.
slowly by doing it, because subconsciously it's on a different level. Consciously you're thinking and you're aware of it, but then sometimes when an incident happens or something happens and then subconsciously that thought comes up. So how do you master
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
on that level?
Yeah, absolutely. First is the tools that we just talked about, the identity statement as we unpacked it, and your transformational strategies, mastering your thoughts, words, and actions consistently over time, building that up in yourself, reminding yourself of who you are before you're in challenge, not afterwards. If you do that multiple times a day, when I was first walking in my life mastery journey years ago, I would do it 5-6 times a day. The affirmations I had, I didn't just write them down. I spoke them into my recorder in my phone, so that even if I was driving, I'd be able to remind myself of who I am again. I'm not sure how old you are. I'm 60 years old right now. That's take out the first, 2-3 years of your life when you're really forming your brain. That's 57 years of my life telling me who I am, really more like 47, really 42 when I was on that life mastery journey. And so you have 20, 30 years of you repetitively having those same responses you're talking about. And so you have to repetitively retrain your brain. The interesting thing is, before I answer your question, mastering your thoughts, words, and actions, it is revolutionary the way I'm talking about it. But here's the interesting thing. Those are tools we're already using. The challenge is we're using them in a disempowering way. We're having thoughts that tell us who we're not, the things we're going to fail at, the horrible things that could happen, the things that we're not going to be able to do. We have words that align with that. Every time a stress happens, a challenge happens, something happens, I make a mistake, I have a financial downturn. What are you saying about the situation? And here's the bitter one. What do you say about you? The words you tell yourself that nobody else hears, the conversations you have yourself when nobody else is around. So we're already using our words and your actions. You talked about it, and I love that you were vulnerable and willing to say that, and I've done it in my own life as well. The things that you don't do, right? Actions you don't take is still an action. And so those things you hesitate on, you wait on, you minimize, you hold back from because of, those are all actions. So we're already taking those actions, but now we're realigning them with the truth of who we are and taking proactive, empowering thoughts, words, and actions in our life. And if I could quickly unpack what you're talking about, the interesting thing is, as I talked about, you're living from who you're created to be or what your life has told you. Here's the challenge. So an experience in my own life. There's several I could talk about, but there's the one experience. So I'll talk about a relationship one. When I was about 5 or 6, my father was in the military in the United States. And in the military in the United States, sometimes you have your job title, whatever your role is within the military service, they might need that role somewhere else. And if they need it somewhere else, well, then you're going somewhere else for it. And sometimes your family doesn't go along. When I was 5 or 6 years old, that was one of those times. He went to a foreign country to serve in the military, and my mom was at our home with us, the little kids. I had a sister 1 year younger than myself. So I was 5, she was 4. I was 5 years old. I had a sister 1 year older who was 6. And then I had a sister who was 7 years older than me. So that was 13. No, I'm sorry, 12. She had 4 young children at those ages, managing the household, managing everything without my father there. It was more than she could actually handle mentally, and she had a nervous breakdown.
Wow.
An ambulance and police were called, and she was taken to a hospital where she needed to be cared for a period of time. So there's these 4 children that are sitting there. Father is not there. Father is not there. Your strength, your comfort, your care is not there. Mother is being taken away. The love, the compassion, all the things you have, the people you know and love are there. And so there were 4 of us kids, and, my extended family wasn't really wealthy. And so they all decided that each one of my mom's siblings, sisters and brother, would take one of us into their household until my father could come back from the foreign country. And so that's what happened. And so again, father is out of the country, not there to be with you. Mother has been taken away, not there to be with you. And now even my sisters, I'm not even around. So you're all by yourself with people you don't really know. And everybody you know who you believe loves you is not there. There's an identity statement of every experience we walk through. The identity statement for that young man was, people who love me leave me.
Abandonment. That's what I was thinking straight away.
Imagine going into your teenage years. And for me, you get into those hormonal teenage years where every love is the last one and it's all Romeo and Juliet and this is going to last forever. And then you guys don't last forever. What are the things that you tell yourself? What are the emotions that you use? Fear, anxiety, stress, worry, because I know what this means. People who love me leave me. You don't understand it consciously, but your emotions respond to the identity statement you gave. The statement was this: you're not worth loving. It happens in divorce. It happens in abandonment. It happens with a lot of people and in a lot of ways, right? You struggle academically. You feel like you're not as smart as everybody else. It's not something you talk about as an experience. It's an identity statement that marks you and determines your course in that action. So I become a young married person, or I have a girlfriend who becomes a spouse, and our relationship isn't working out. We're having those normal challenges and issues in marriage. What's the emotions that come up? Stress and worry, and I've got to fix this, and I've got to make sure that everything's okay. And right, it's the things you use because, again, I'm not worth loving. And so you understand where that came from. You understand the outcome. You don't understand the root. And so the reason why you have those same thoughts repetitively is because of identity statements, believing you're somebody else. But there's a root, and that root is experiences that we've walked through that have told us who we are. Again, living from who you're created to be, or what your life has told you. For that young man of 5 years old, his life told him, you're not worth loving. It wasn't something he understood. It wasn't something he said out loud. It wasn't something he knew consciously, but it was something that established there that took hold in every relationship thereafter at some level. So how do you get rid of that? Well, the first thing you do is you recognize the emotion. As I tell people, I don't have time to unpack it really, but we have 4 pillars of life mastery. The 4 pillars are identity, experience, meaning, and emotion. You're either living from identity or you're living from experience. If I'm living from experience, then my experience isn't the experience I'm walking through only, but it's the meaning I'm giving it. And the meaning isn't about the experience. Everybody has good and bad experiences in their life. It's what does that experience say about me? It's never the experience you walk through. We know people who have gone through horrible, horrendous things in their life, and they've become stronger. They become more resilient. They become more confident in their ability to do that. We know people who have gone through seemingly minor things in their life, and they talk about it for years because they're a victim to what their experience was. It wasn't the experience. It's the meaning you took of it. And it wasn't the meaning of the experience, because bad is bad. Horrible is horrible. Great is great. It was, what does the experience say about me? Again, that young boy, and your own story, whoever's listening or watching this. What is the identity statement you took from it? What I've just unpacked there is what we unpack in the reverse in our course. So that it's identity, experience, meaning, and emotion. I tell people the emotion is the only honest thing. If I wasn't worth loving, if everybody who loved me left me, then fear and stress and shame and anxiety would be proper emotions, right? Because you're right. Everybody does leave you. You're right. You're not as smart as you're right. You're never going to succeed, right? But those aren't truthful. They're just the understanding you had at the moment. So what we do is we use the emotion, like you talked about, stress, anxiety, worry, whatever, imposter syndrome. And we first off recognize it, because what I tell people, as in my course and in my book, Life Mastery, Living Life by Design, Not by Default, is the emotion is an amazing flag that's planted there that says, hey, this is something you may want to deal with. So in a relationship, this isn't happening, but my wife and I aren't getting along. We're at odds about something in our lives, and I find this emotion coming up of worry and stress. The first thing is to see the flag that's planted. Oh, I understand. I get that. There's worry happening here. Where is that coming from? Oh, it's because of we're not getting along. Okay, well, that area of stress, that shame, that worry, that feeling of not being as smart as or as good as everybody else, where was the first time you felt that? That's something we walk through. So we do the same thing in reverse. What my childhood informed the rest of my life, now I look at where I'm at right now, use the emotion as a flag to tell me there's something to work on. And I look back with the question of, okay, well, where's the first time I felt that? So shame, worry, stress. When was the first time you felt like you weren't lovable, you worthy of being loved? Well, it was that time when I felt abandoned by everybody who was supposed to love me. So then there's a couple of questions we use if I could unpack those really quickly. You recognize your emotion. It's the flag telling you what you're dealing with. The question is, when's the first time that you've experienced that? Well, I remember that then. I've got years of experience in it. So if it's something you remember from 2 years ago, but really there was something that happened 10 years ago, there's still valid steps you take and they're all the same. So you see the emotion. What's the flag showing me? It's the emotion that I'm dealing with. When's the first time I felt it? I felt it then. What's the lie I believed back then? Well, I believed as a young boy that I wasn't worth loving because everybody who loved me was gone. Here's the powerful one. Here's the impactful one. Here's the one that'll change your life forever. Not just what's the lie that you believed. What's the truth that you know now? Because I'm walking in identity. I got my I am state, my celebration list, my accomplishment list. I know that I'm a person of worth and value because I'm using it and reminding myself daily of it. I'm seeing that I have a life of success and goodness and relationship and all of those things that I'm working towards. It's not everything that it's going to be, but it's so much more than it was. So in that place of stability now, looking back on your life, what's the truth that you know? The truth is that it wasn't me that was the issue. My father had a responsibility. My mother had a mental challenge in her life. It wasn't a statement of love towards me. It was a person dealing with and coping with their life the best way they could. And I'll tell you, Linda, when you start to unpack those things, there's almost an instantaneous change in your life. Because now all of a sudden you break the tie of the false identity, the lie you believed, where your experience told you who you were. We never tell people that their experience doesn't matter. We just don't want them to have it tell them who they are anymore. These are some steps we take and some other things, actually a lot of other things and strategies and tools to help them unpack that. But that's a huge one. What's the lie that you believed? What's the truth that you know? In that place, now all of a sudden, not only do I see in my past, oh, well, that's why I was having to micromanage that relationship. That's why I could never speak my mind in this relationship. That's why I had to make sure everything was okay here, or I got mad every time something didn't go right, because you start to unpack and understand some of the things you thought were just, why am I acting that way? Why do I have to continue to deal with this? You start to unpack and understand that, but you also have this amazing miracle of knowing what the truth is, and it can unpack and change and transform years of experiences in your life. So now the amazing blessing is what happens the next time things aren't working out well. In many cases, that emotion never comes up again because now I know what the truth is. And this is just a disagreement. This is just something that I'm walking through. This is just something that's happening here. It's not a value statement on who I am. It's just an experience that I'm walking through. But when it does come up, oh, I felt that. That was a little bit of fear or shame or whatever. Well, now all of a sudden, it doesn't seed in your brain. It doesn't continue to torture you. It doesn't repeat in your head because I recognize it almost immediately. And because I do, it has no power over me any longer. And in that place, you're set free. It's transformation. That is, in one area, in one place in my own life where there was transformation for people, there's amazing miracles that happen in moments. And then there's things that take time. Some of these things take time, but with the right tools, you can literally change your life forever.
Yeah, like some people take years to uncover these things too through therapy and whatnot too. But one thing that just got me there is the questions that you ask yourself and being aware of these questions and being aware of the thoughts and the feelings and the emotions that come up as well. Because sometimes what I used to do personally is push them down and just distract and just work and, but now I'm starting to learn more about feeling these feelings and then questioning these things as well. And I guess it's also opening up more blockages. And for me, there's levels. I think in life, everyone has wounds in life and traumas in life, and it's just unlocking these things to become the person, like you said, that you're created to be too. But It's very interesting there. I'm curious, like, has there been any books or mentors that have helped you uncover these things in your life? This transformation was,
Yeah.
how did you discover all this? For me, I've only just started listening to podcasts and different podcasts that have helped me as well. And yeah, it's just books. I'm fascinated. I love reading. I'm hungry for knowledge as well. But who's made a huge impact on you in book wise or mentorship wise?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I think I am a person of faith. So for me, the Bible has been a core one for me. There's no truth that I've told you about right now that I couldn't pull from a phrase or a scripture in the Bible. Mastering your thoughts, words, and actions are all in there. Most people don't see them because, like with me, we've used it as philosophy, not as instruction. And again, it's a life by default that most people are like, this is all I have. Which, by the way, that thing you talked about yourself, again, I love your vulnerability of, trying to unpack layers and all these things that you're doing. It is absolutely an everybody journey. One of the biggest aha moments in my own life was when I was working in my own transformational journey and found out that it was a we thing, not a me thing. Because I haven't met a person yet, apart from a transformational journey, that isn't doing what you've talked about and I've done as well, which is trying to manage my life, I don't want to deal with those emotions. That just doesn't feel comfortable. You try and act like it's not there. You try and build up walls. You try and make excuses or whatever, right? We all have those things that we do. That's that life by default. It's all of us. So for me, as a person of faith, it all starts there. The mastering your thoughts. There's a scripture that says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. There's an instruction in that. There's an idea that the author's trying to give the reader, and that author is saying, hey, there's a person who's wealthy, who is acting like they're your friend. They're bringing you into the party. They're offering you food. But be careful. Who they are on the inside is different than what they're acting like on the outside. That's the story and the understanding and the background of that actual phrase and that portion of the Bible, Proverbs 23:7. But the instruction is, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he, or whatever. As a woman thinks in her heart, so is she. That means that I am today the sum total of the thoughts that I've had. As I tell people, I wrote it in my book, I have in my course, I say it all the time, who you think you are, you'll become. You'll never live a life greater than who you believe you'll be. And so what that means is, for me, that young man in his early 20s, mid 20s, late 20s, who had that guy on the inside, the person I believed I could be. Well, if I want to see that man show up on the outside, then first and foremost, maybe I need to align my thoughts with who I'm created to be, not what my past has told me. Again, if you guys want to write something down, you should remember for the rest of your life, write this down. It's this phrase about your thoughts. Your thoughts are either aligned with who you're created to be or they're lying to you. There is no in between.
They're aligned to you. Your thoughts are aligned to you, or
they're
your thoughts
lying to you. So your thoughts are either aligned with who you're created to be or they're lying to you.
Oh, wow.
Because if my thoughts aren't aligned with who I am, who I'm created to be, the person I am, then they are lying to me because that's not who I am. So if they're telling you that you're not good enough, that you won't be able to, create that 7, 8, 9 figure income, that you won't be able to start that podcast, you won't be able to have that business, that job, that role, that position, that relationship, is that the truth or is it a lie? So all of it starts with your thoughts, mastering your words. Of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. I tell people this as well. So mastering your words will tell me who you are. If I speak to anybody long enough, eventually I'll find out what they believe about themselves because it'll come out. So again, same with your thoughts, your words. Are your words speaking the truth of who you are or reminding you of who you're not? Our words do two things. They speak out who we believe we are, and they give us instructions to live out. It's interesting. The brain is created in such a way that your words are instructions. They're not just vocalization. This is who I am. So when you say you're stupid, when you say you're an idiot, when you say you're a failure, it's not just something you're declaring because it's the thoughts that you believe about yourself. It's instructions you're giving back to your brain to prove it to you. And so affirmations, why do they work? Meditation, why does it work? Because it's not just me speaking things out and eventually I'll believe it. It's because I'm speaking things out and giving my brain instructions to live those things out. Mastering your words and then mastering your actions. We could talk about that as well. So for me, it all starts with that. As a person of faith, it starts biblically. One of my favorite people is a neuroscientist, Caroline Leaf, who's done extensive studies. She's South African. Has done extensive studies, neuroplasticity, the workings of the brain, worked with people with brain damage and restructuring and recreating things that people believed that not really mentally undeveloped people, but people who've had traumatic brain injury and accidents where it was believed that they would never be able to retain or recreate cognitive function. So they'd never be able to do those things again that they used to. She showed that it was incorrect. And, what I love with her is a person of faith as well. She ties it to scripture. So she sees that there's an alignment there. But what she does really well is describe how we can change those structures in our brain, neuroplastic structures, which are really for people who don't read or study or are not nerds who love it like I do. They're basically the shortcuts to decision making in our brain. And so we could unpack that at another time. But what that means is that when I start to create those structures that are in alignment with who I am, I start to give myself shortcut instructions for the person I'm created to be to show up. So decisions, so actions, so confidence, so assurance, so the things that are you, right? So creativity, so passion, so whatever the things are that are the you things. Now all of a sudden that person shows up. It's not me working myself up to become something. I got to work myself up to be confident before I go into this meeting. It's not just showing up confidently and calmly because I don't need to pretend to be me. I only need to pretend if I don't believe me.
Wow. Yeah, you really have to embody it. That's what Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about too. Like
Joe Dispenza, I love him as well.
Yeah, like being and embodying as well. So it definitely takes practice over time as well, but it's just a fascinating thing. A lot to unpack. Definitely a lot. When I'm hearing you speak, there's just so much wisdom and knowledge as well. But for me to have to process it and think about it, it's just fascinating. You've just got such a wealth of knowledge. Guys, if you're finding this very valuable, let me know in the comments what your key takeaway was. Was there an aha moment that really resonated with you as well? If you're not already, hit the follow button. It does help the channel grow. Finally, do you have any key last messages that you want to leave with our audience that you could share?
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing I try and share is the one thing I did right throughout the whole process. This young person in his teens to his 20s to his 30s, walking through a transformational journey, trying to use change in habits to change his life. The reason I created Life Mastery, the course, and wrote the book was because I didn't find a transformational program out there. And so I created one. But the one thing I did right during that whole process was I refused to give up on myself. And the reason I tell that to the people who are listening or watching is because literally that's the only thing you need to be good at. I talked about business success that we've had. Well, the business that succeeded the most, that we really got the most value out of, was the fifth one that we started, right? Before I created a transformational program, Life Mastery, I had multitudes of courses that I took. I had dozens of books that I read. Everything I could actually afford or get for free, I used because I believed in that the person I was created to be could actually be there. The one thing I did right was I refused to give up. So I believe Life Mastery is transformational. It can change your life in a way that will be transformational for you. But there's one thing I can't provide for you. It's the one thing you could provide for yourself. This willingness to bet on yourself one more time. Wherever you're at in your journey, if you're an amazingly successful person who's just trying to get some tweaks on your mental process, or you're somebody who's really wanting to reach that big goal, but you can't figure out why you won't even start, or you're anywhere in between that, the one thing that you can do is refuse to give up on yourself. The best transformational strategies in the world won't work for a person who's already given up hope. If you do that one thing, if you refuse to give up on yourself, I believe that you will find the transformational strategies you need. You'll find that man or that woman that you were believing for, that you're desperate for, that you're reaching for, will actually start showing up in your life. The one thing that you can provide is the one thing I can, but it's the one thing that'll change your life forever. Bet on yourself one more time. Forget about giving up. Believe in yourself and believe that you're right. Even if all of your life doesn't show it and nobody else believes it, believe in you, and you'll find those strategies, transformation in your life, and you'll find that man or woman show up, and it'll be amazing. Your life will never be the same again.
That's so powerful. Never give up. I love that message as well. Finally, where can people find you if they want to connect and follow you?
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as all of my resources and courses, you can go out to my website, freedom-4-life.net, freedom-4-life.net. I have the full course out there for people who are ready to go all in and go on their transformational journey. I also have the ebook version of my book out there on my website. So for less than $10, you can grab some strategies and tools and actually start transforming your life this week. That's out there as well. Personally, you can reach out to me on Mark, M-A-R-K, at freedom-4-life.net if you want to engage me directly. I have a website, not just the website, but I have a YouTube channel, Freedom for Life. So it's _Freedom for Life _. I apologize when you're not the first one with the name. You got to find some way of making it work, or you have to rebrand your whole life. So underscore freedom for life underscore is the YouTube channel. Freedom-for-life is the website. In either case, grab something that can resource you. I'd love for you to get the book and to be a part of it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, Mark. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Linda. It's been a great conversation.